Welcome to another episode of the Market Makers in Middle East and Africa podcast. Today I speak to Mahmoud Adi, founding partner at Shorooq Partners, one of the largest and successful VC firm in the region. Mahmoud also sits at the board of various companies and he is also a co-founder of Pure Harvest Farms, the largest agri-tech business in the region. Mahmoud, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's
Yeah.
my pleasure.
Mahmoud, I'm really thrilled to have you. I mean, you are a celebrated entrepreneur, a VC at one of the largest and successful VC firm, sitting at various boards. Tell us about your story.
Certainly. So I grew up in Abu Dhabi. And as a kid, I had this kind of weird hobby where I used to kind of break things up, right? So whenever my parents would get me a toy, I would break it and I would look for like how this thing worked. So I always got kind of pushed like just be a normal kid and, and play with the toys, don't break them up. And I would say that kind of carried with me as I grew up. I went to a local college, part of Khalifa University today, did mechanical engineering, sort of kind of natural progression of my kind of passion about physical stuff and how things work. Alhamdulillah, graduated with honor and distinction. Really loved studying the engineering and started my career in the oil and gas industry. Was quite passionate about the subject of engineering, but the implementation of that in the real life was a bit kind of shocking for me, where I did not feel challenged enough. So at the time, I looked around and I wanted to really challenge myself, and I kind of embark on Mubadala investment company at a time where Mubadala was building and growing and looking for local talent to build them in the finance industry. And a prerequisite of that was to kind of study CFA. And I said to myself, okay, let me do that. The CFA level 1 and really enjoyed finance. Upon passing the exam, and I remember it was a kind of defining moment because I really didn't know if I'm going to make it or not. I joined the investment team in Mubadala, and Mubadala was a defining moment in my career. I spent 10 years in that fabulous organization where I kind of built my investment skill sets. And the first couple of years focused on the metals and mining industry, where we built, where Mubadala built a massive aluminium industry in the country. So today the UAE is one of the largest exporter of that method. And that sort of kind of focus early in my career on investing in heavy metals actually gave me a lot of great exposure to large scale infrastructure investments. So we're talking about almost $15 billion in a span of 5 years. I believe I was privileged. I was lucky to be at the right time, in the right place. And at the same time, kind of gave me a lot of reflection and I would say moral obligation to give back. So after we did, after we kind of spent all of that time, and so the kind of the success of building Emirates Global Aluminium, I decided to go and pursue my MBA. And there is no better place to go to a place like Stanford Business School, where I felt I'll be exposed to a whole different kind of industries. And particularly, I was quite keen to learn about technology. And after graduation, I felt it's about time to kind of dedicate my career and the future phase of my career to technology. I got to believe that the next wealth creation going to come from investing and backing and being part of the tech movement globally. The Valley is a quite unique place to be the capital of venture capital and entrepreneurship. But also, I came to believe that the rest of the world and other places are not necessarily less kind of, I would say, less privileged with that. It's about really matching the entrepreneur with the right kind of capital and providing the environment for them. And I wanted to kind of take that sort of kind of idea and that thinking and bring it back home. And I was privileged also to meet my co-founder there, Shane, who spent almost the majority of his life in the US, but he come from Asia. And both of us had this kind of passion for investing, technology, emerging market. Sort of, we said like, okay, let's go back home and start something from scratch. And that was the birth of Shuruq Partner.
Ah, very good, very good. Very interesting story, Mahmoud. Shurooq Partners. So, what's the motivation of founding Shurooq Partners, and what's the kind of grand vision that you have?
Let me start by the kind of grand vision. So the way that we think about ourselves, we are building the leading technology investment company from emerging market, focus on emerging market. And why is that? Because similar to what I was sharing earlier, I think the entire globe is going through disruption by technology, and it's been always the case. So when we look at the combustion engines, when we look at the fire, when we look at all of these kind of technological advancement that has happened, right? It just created a significant TAM, or kind of grew the pie of economies, right? So we are firm believer in that, and we want to be at the center of the movement in emerging markets. And why we say emerging market? Because if you look at the population, the demographic, right? You look at the hunger that's coming from emerging market. It does present opportunities, and there is no kind of lack of real problem to be solved, and there is no lack of, I would say, ambitious talent, right? It is literally about providing the right mix, right? There's a long way for us to go as emerging markets, right? But there are, of course, immense opportunities if we push in the right direction. And one interesting kind of thing to share, the name Shuruq is actually quite particular. Shuruq means in Arabic sunrise. And if we think about sun provide us with energy, right? And energy is, today you can put solar panel, you can convert that into power, you can use that power to have compute, which is ultimately the kind of the driver of technology, right? So the way that we have been thinking about Shuruq is we spreading that energy, that light, that sort of technology across the region.
Very interesting. Mahmoud, Shurooq Partners, when you go and identify promising companies, what strategies you apply or what you look for when you invest in people and companies?
Yeah, so when we think about any great technology company that is in the region, of course, the biggest success story for us is Kareem as in the region. And if you look globally, there are so many amazing success stories. There are usually 3 to 4 things that matter. And these things, they are kind of constant throughout the life of the kind of the company. However, the importance, right, the weight of the importance is kind of different at the different stages. So let's just to kind of make this a lot more practical in the practical terms. If you are an early stage investor, you're coming in the seed stage, you're coming in the pre-A, in the Series A stages, which is the sweet spot today for our venture capital practice under Bidaya, right? The emphasis on the team, the founding team, and the quality of that investment team, that kind of founding team is one of the most important things that we look at, right? I'll list them and then kind of go and elaborate on each one of them. So we look at team, we look at how big is this market opportunity, we look at the solution and the nature of the solution. Are we in marginal improvement or actually a fundamental solution, right? And then we look at the business model itself, right? For the early stage investing, right? The team is extremely important, because at the end of the day, think about this: you are riding in a bus, right? The founding team are the people who are really holding the steering wheel, right? And you are sitting in that bus behind. You are really trusting them to navigate all these bumps that are going to come on the road, to kind of take the right turn, the left turn, right? We're going in a direction, right? We don't have a GPS, unfortunately, right? You're kind of picking clue on the road. but ultimately you're relying significantly on their skill set, their intelligence, their actually fast iteration of everything that they're learning from the road, right, to make these decisions. So for us, that's important. We also like to kind of back multi-founders, right, rather than just a single founder. We know this is a long journey, and sometimes it can be lonely, sometimes it can be difficult. You really want someone to be with you on the trenches when things are difficult, that you can really open up and someone can take some of the kind of sheer volume of activities from you. So we spend a lot of time to get to know people, right? We visit them in their offices. If they have an office, we invite them to our offices. We take them out for dinner, coffee chat. We actually have, we don't make an investment decision before all the founders meet like the founders, right? Every partner at Shuruq has to meet them for us to make
Wow.
a decision. So we do emphasize a lot on that. Second, when we talk about the market opportunity, ultimately, you want to be going after a large market, right? Now, there are two ways to look at this. One is, today there is a large market that I can go after, right? And usually that is in software, right? When I would say, for example, payroll today is a broken process for SMEs, right? We know that there is thousands and thousands of SMEs. They process this much of kind of payroll on a monthly basis, right? I can sort of assume a certain pricing per person or kind of charging mechanism. I can identify the market opportunity. That's easy. Not easy, that's kind of easier, right? And you want to go after like large market, like $100 million to kind of billions of dollars, sort of kind of a market opportunity from sizing. What is more difficult to identify is when you have an innovative technology for you to kind of look in the future and say, I have a firm view that this will become large in like a few years down the road. And that's a true technology innovation and advancement. And in the region, I would say we see less of these opportunities, but it has actually been increasing over the past few years. And we can talk about some of the examples where we at Shuruq, we backed some of these interesting opportunities that we believe the market is being created, or we are developing the market. So that's the second thing, the market, how big is the market? The third one is, like, you want to look at the product and you want to see, like, how solid is this product? Is this a nice to have? Is this like a painkiller or a vitamin, right? Supplement or a really painkiller that people, once people get used to it, it is there. Like, it's not easy to replace, not easy to kind of, people want it. Like, people daily want to consume that, or businesses, once they are on it, they find so much value creation for them that it change how they operate, right? And usually for something to become a de facto in the market, it has to be 10x better than the incumbent, right? So you got to spend time. So if it's an early stage, usually that product is more of kind of philosophical discussion that you're having because they are not yet built, right? But sometimes already built, so there's an MVP stage, and you're looking at it and you're evaluating. The last but not the least, I would say the business model. You want to make sure you can provide that product to a large market, and that team is the right team to deliver that, and they're going to make money, right? So I can give you an example, and probably will dive deeper a little bit more in the agri business. But today, I can argue you can grow anything, right? At the cost, but at unreasonable cost. The trick is not about to growing food, right, at any cost. The trick is how you're going to grow scalable food at an affordable
Cost.
prices and cost for the consumer, right? So you want to make sure that you can get that under control, and there is business, like there is an opportunity to make money.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very, very good. Mahmoud, now, once you identify a company and people to invest in, after that, what support do you provide them to scale the business or help them grow, overcome challenges? And how you as Shuruk Partners differentiate yourself from other VC firms? And as you mentioned that you are a VC from emerging market for the emerging market. So how, that all comes and helps the founders?
Great question. I would say there are very tangible things and there are philosophical things, right? So just to focus on the tangible points today. So Shurooq today we have 7 offices globally, right? With a concentration, of course, in the MENA region. Headquartered in Abu Dhabi with an office in Dubai, Riyadh, Cairo, Manama, Islamabad, and our international office in Korea. Now, uh, the reason I say that's tangible because that's of course physical, but what it means you have a team that is very close from the action on the ground in all of these markets,
Mhm.
right? And why is that important? Because we do believe that early stage investing is very local. Growth investing is regional, right? And the ability to have that kind of mix between being able to be in a micro, right, setting where you're really able to understand the nuances of the market and the dynamic, and then kind of pull up a little bit and be kind of macro and think about the region. So that's one, right? Our physical presence. Second is you probably have noticed I've been saying Shurooq as an investment kind of company, technology investment company, because we are multi-stage and multi-strategies investment company today.
Mm.
We have our venture capital that's well established. We have our venture debt that we kind of pioneered in the region. And what does that mean is a company that we have backed from the early stages as they grow and they get to a stage where they are eligible for venture debt or alternative sources of capital, Shurooq Partner can be available for them,
Mhm.
right, to actually help them access that capital. And we have provided venture debt for some of the portfolio companies and some of non-portfolio companies, right? And we think that is like a successful investment company need to always be there for the best portfolio companies that they got, right? I would say the third thing, you look at the Shuruq Partners team. We are around 30 people, extremely diverse from ethnicities, education, professional background, and that's extremely enriching. At the same time, it does provide a very unique network
Mhm.
that we have at Shuruq, from the east to the west. And one thing we really found quite helpful is to kind of connect our network with our portfolio company that not only provide business, and I think every venture capital, every investor will help their portfolio companies, or they should help their portfolio companies access business or large account, but also help them to access downstream capital. And we have enormous example where some of our really close partners from Asia kind of came in and supported our portfolio company with sizable amount of capital that's actually not available in the region. And we're talking about like 50 to $100 million
Mhm. Mhm.
in some of these kind of companies. So those are kind of very tangible example on how we help and how we've been adding value and what sort of kind of differentiates Shurooq. I think what is more important for me is the philosophy behind Shurooq Partners. And one thing we set this firm on from the beginning is being founders, partners, company builders, and value creator or value investor, right? So the founder partner concept, it's sometimes misused or misthought about, but we always try to protect it in our DNA. And what is really important to kind of underscore in that is the founders, they need always someone with them
Mhm.
that have like kind of 30,000 feet view, but also at the same time help them think outside the box, help them sort of uh, be accountable for the decision that they are making,
Mhm.
right? And provide contrarian perspective. Like it is the easiest thing is to be the nicest guy in the room,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? But then I'm not necessarily being a founder partner. I'm being a founder friend,
Friend.
right? And ultimately, all of us are incentivized by making a good success story out of the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you are a successful business person as well. Like, you know, that actually we grow the most with the kind of the most difficult conversation, and being there for the founders and have enough credit with them, right? That you can also at the same time have a difficult conversation and map out like the kind of different scenarios of the decision that we are making is what we stand for,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we feel that has been really a good strength for us as Shuruq, right?
Perfect. Another question, follow-up question on this, Mahmoud.
Mhm.
Apart from this, do you get engaged or help the companies in operational side, or for example, helping them select a right board member, you know, wherever you're present, helping them with regulatory stuff? So do you provide that kind of support?
So the answer is yes, but I don't classify that as kind of operational stuff. I would say kind of the important strategic decision of the
Mm-hmm.
company, right? So there are portfolio companies, multiple portfolio companies that we help them with M&As, right?
Mm-hmm.
As an investment company, you have you have investor kind of caliber people on your team. You have certain skill set that not every company would have, right? Which is around corporate M&A, how you acquire a business, how you structure a deal, how would you make sure that you kind of squeeze the best value for you as an acquirer, right? And there are a lot of example where we've been active with the management, with the founders team on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one. Second, on the regulation side, this goes back to kind of our physical presence on this market, right? We develop good relationship with stakeholders in every market,
Mm-hmm.
right? And as companies scale, and this is particularly for fintech, right? They need to talk to the central bank in the UAE. They need to talk to the central bank in Saudi. They need to talk to the central bank in Egypt, right? We have this relationship, right? And we can facilitate. We can also get some informal feedback on new ideas, right? Like, oh, we think about doing this. Should we do it? Should not we do it? Right? And we have this sort of kind of dialogue, right? Also like senior member hiring, right? Sometime we have a bench of people that we refer for companies. Sometime actually driving like a new set of hires. We identify, well, this company need a CFO. They are embarking on a new fundraising journey, and the level of financial acumen is not necessarily at the right stage of where the company have grown, right? So being there for the companies and proactively sort of pitching ideas and helping them to kind of think through those is our role.
Coming to the industries in the MENA region, which areas do you see most promising? I mean, we have seen a lot of stuff, ride hailing, fintech, but where you see that there is a huge potential, and this is where you see a good potential in coming years in the MENAP region.
I would say fintech is a clear winner and a clear opportunity for the venture capital industry. The reason for that is the region is vast. We have a significant unbanked population. And unbanked, when we say unbanked, does not necessarily mean people don't have access to the basic financial services, right? If someone does not have access to, let's say, alternative, investment tools, that means they are unbanked from the investment tools, right? If people don't have access to like certain options, mean unbanked, right? And also like businesses as well, right? So the unbanked is very high, right? Almost 400 million people, very young population, 50% are under the age of 30, right? And you look at the way that the financial system has been built, it is centering around banks, right? And banks Of course, they are good at taking deposits, good at probably lending, very limited lending on very certain set of program like mortgages and what have you, right? But then you look beyond that, they don't necessarily have the DNA on how to operate, and the infrastructure is extremely like behind, or a legacy that's really difficult to innovate on top of it. So what we have seen is we have seen a lot of kind of companies that are building different infrastructure layers, and we at Shuruq actually became we are very deep. We have deep expertise when it comes to the fintech. Right. Today we have like a company like Lean. It's open banking. It's a really company. They power money movement between bank account. They powering multiple of our portfolio companies, right? We have other portfolio companies that doing card expenses, like a company like Pemo. Pemo is using like another company for the card issuing, them card, and so forth, right? So you started to actually see an ecosystem that's
Developing.
that developing, and still there is a long way to go on the fintech. So I think the fintech is a clear sector of interest, and a clear sector where there is a lot of inclusion that's going to happen, right? And productivity increase that can happen. Mobility has been and continue to be like an interesting sector, right? Of course, we talked about Korean success stories in the mobility space. We see also in the mobility like truck movement, right? And the mobility in general is a large industry, and if you can introduce or increase the productivity in that sector, you just kind of create a significant economic value, right? We are also started to see, and we're excited about the softwares, right? Like homegrown software that are solving regional problems, right? Payroll is an interesting one. I mentioned that earlier. Like there is now a lot of people who are trying to solve payroll. It is an interesting
Yeah.
interesting area. So you look at software that are regionally focused, right? Or sorry, problem that are unique to the region, and then you find smart people who are building some of these kind of company to solve those problems. Right.
Perfect. Coming to Pure Harvest. So you are
Yes.
a co-founder at Pure Harvest Farms, one of the, again, successful and largest agri-tech business. What was the motivation behind it? And tell us more about what you did and what you accomplished.
So Pure Harvest is very interesting, and it's dear, of course, to my heart. So when I grew up, I remember going with my dad to the fresh produce market, and was little at the time. But one thing I observed, you would see like different season, different product. Usually the product are not consistent, right? In the season, actually, the product tastes really good. Like I remember tomatoes and cucumber were like in the season they will taste amazing. Off season, they don't look, they don't have the best aesthetic. Prices fluctuating all the time, right? So like the market is sort of kind of dumb, and whoever is available like, will take whatever available in the market, right? So it's something that kind of stuck in my memory. Um, uh, and when I was in the when I was doing my MBA, I did come across the Agri. I was taking classes in the agriculture just because I was fascinated by like the economic of that, and ultimately kind of countries they provide for their people. One of that's healthcare, food, shelter, like this kind of the basic necessity of people. So like just out of curiosity, I wanted to study that, and I came across the hydroponic concepts, and that was like 10 years ago now, right? And my takeaway from I remember my takeaway from that class was, look, these hydroponic technologies work in places where you have scarcity when it comes to natural resources, but you have access to financial resources, and that stuck with me. Okay, our region have access to financial resources, but we have scarcity when it comes to the natural resources. So there could be something to be done there. Right. When I came back here, I was like, was in one of the kind of Stanford network event. I met Sky, my co-founder, and Robert, my other co-founder, in a Pure Harvest, and we were talking about like the kind of why don't we do something to tackle the food problem and the fresh produce, and how about we do a kind of hydroponic? I was like, oh, like look, that's actually interesting. Started to kind of connect the dot. So okay, let's actually do it. So it came from like literally being aware of a
Being aware.
concept, some personal memories on like living through the problem, right? Getting exposed to a solution, and then finding other smart people that we want to do it together. And it's like, okay, let's partner up together, put the capital, and we started. And I can tell you, it actually was not easy, right? This was 2016, 17. And this whole concept of producing in country was not necessarily like a big thing,
Big thing at that.
right? Of course, COVID accelerated, and COVID kind of changed people's narrative when it comes to that. But at the time, we raised $3.5 million, and it was probably the toughest fundraise. And almost everyone was kind of an angel investor, most of them from outside the country, because the concept of producing food in a desert was not necessarily something that people would believe it can
Believe,
happen. Right? Now, what is Pure Harvest? Pure Harvest is an agri business. We produce year-round, high-quality fresh produce at affordable prices. Today, we have 21 hectare in operation between UAE and Saudi. We're building a facility in Kuwait. We're expanding our Saudi presence. We exported, very proud to say, UAE technology that's exporting to Singapore.
Wow.
We're building in Singapore. Singapore, of course, as a government, they scouted the earth looking for technologies and partners, and Pure Harvest was ranked the best. And we are, we got the land in Singapore where land is scarce.
Wow.
And we're going through the permitting and all of that. The vision is simple, right? You want to provide high quality fresh produce close to the consumer at affordable prices, right? How can you do that? By controlling the environment that you're growing the plant, and you want to control it at the scale. And similar to what we mentioned at the beginning, you want to make sure you're doing economically, right? Because technically you can control anything. Right? But you want to do it at the scale, and it's economical, and the business is profitable, and the business is actually proven to be resilient and producing. Like I can also say, we have hit world record on yield production, right? So when you think about kind of the standard production, and so this is something for the Dutch. So the Dutch are the best in class when it comes to growing, and the standard production usually is called TOV, tomato on a vine. The numbers that we are hitting in Nahel in Abu Dhabi and in Al Ain are world class and competing with the best out there.
And how big is the scale, Mahmoud? I mean, in terms
So
of
21 hectare. Right, a hectare is 10,000 meters squared. So these are massive. Just to kind of put things in kind of context, a single farm is like 6 hectare.
Wow.
Right, so 60,000 meters squared. Right, that's huge.
That's huge. Yeah.
Right, and in terms of kind of production, you're talking about hundreds of tons of fresh produce on monthly basis. Now we produce tomatoes, or tomatoes as the Dutch like to say it. We produce all type of tomatoes, like candies, like a vine product, heirloom, and all of that stuff. It's available in the kind of key retail shops. We also produce strawberries and green leafies, and we've been just producing now. We started with melons, right? And the list will go on, will continue to grow.
I mean, it's a very impressive story, Mahmoud. So congrats. Now, my last question, Mahmoud. What excites you most about your profession, and what drives you? I mean, it's I believe it's a very challenging role, profiling so many companies, investing, helping them growing, a lot of challenges. So what motivates you?
Let me start with the second one, so we can finish. You said this is the last question. I like always to finish in a very positive note. So, what's kind of challenging in our industry? Uh, mm, so, the returns in our industry are made by outliers, and not every company will make it. And what does that mean? Is you sometimes spend a lot of time with companies and you get emotionally close to them, but unfortunately, they will not be able to make it, and the
Mm-hmm.
company will go will unwind, right? And that's quite challenging, right? From a human point of view, right? Ultimately, companies are people, and uh, they are families, and all of that aspect. So that's challenging. Second, I would say you make decisions today, and you see the outcome of your decision in a couple of years down the road, right? So we constantly challenging ourselves: are we making the right decision or not? Right? There is it's not like you make decision today and next quarter you're gonna see the results, right? So it is long game. It is about like patience, about really sticking to your core values, and seeing value through the kind of cycle, and really distinguishing yourself from the noise. You really need to be level headed, and have a long term perspective. These are really kind of part of the challenge in kind of venture investing. What's exciting is I always remind our team we are really blessed and privileged to be paid to learn and meet the smartest people out there.
Mm.
We constantly learning from the founders. They teach us a lot on a daily basis. We learn new industries. We learn new psychologies. We get exposed to amazing ideas, amazing human being. That is so inspiring. And I feel quite privileged with all the partners and the investors who have been trusting us with their capital, right, to do that job. And we're grateful for them, and we feel the fiduciary duty that we need to take that extremely seriously. And second thing that's super exciting and kind of give me a lot of motivation, when we walk around in the market and you see the product, like you walk into like the Carrefour, the waitress, you see Pure Harvest product. You walk into a restaurant, you see the club product. Right today, a lot of people are using that to sort of kind of make easier payment. You go to a corporate and using a card that issued that making like expense management for them. That part of Shuruq company, right? It's extremely fulfilling to see the joy of people who are using Shuruq product or Shuruq company's product in the market. One thing we didn't talk about is like when I look at the macro level and see the impact that Shuruq has created. So today, alhamdulillah, we have invested 65 companies plus, maybe, right? Double of that in terms of kind of actual investment, like 120, 130 investment. And these companies have raised tremendous amount of money, almost $750 million.
Wow.
That's a
Mm.
significant amount of capital. And what gives me pride is we come in early. So we enabling them to raise that amount of capital. And that has a significant impact on job creation and economic impact. Portfolio companies employ around 15,000 people across the
Mhm,
region.
mhm.
Right? So real tangible impact on the communities that we care about, people that we care about, countries that we are from, right? And talent that from us and within us that building for a brighter future.
Perfect. I mean, it's really, good to talk to you, Mahmoud, and thank you for coming. And it's a really, pleasure to have you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Mahmoud.